Hi guys, I'm Remy and today we're going to talk about the application process for the GKS scholarship. In case you don't know yet, I'm currently studying filmmaking in Seoul, South Korea, and I applied for the scholarship in 2023, so it has been a while, but the applications I checked for last year, they still seem quite similar, so I don't think that much has changed, but obviously you should always do your own research and look at the official guidelines once they come out this year as well. And as always, obviously, I'm not a professional, so this is just how it went for me. Those are my thoughts on the different steps, but I don't know why something worked or maybe why something didn't work, so just this is my own experience. So let's start. I wrote down the different steps so we can talk about them by the date even. So first of all, what you have to do obviously is prepare your application. This is the part where you have to be the most active. There's a lot of documents you have to just collect, and there are some documents you have to create. The list you can always find in the guidelines. This is the one, let's put it over here. Those are the different documents you have to prepare. Always check them, as I said, in the guidelines for the specific year. Once you collected all your documents and your application is finished, you have to send it in either to your embassy or to a university you want to go to. Here's the first decision you have to make, because for the scholarship there are two ways to apply. One is called the embassy track and one is called the university track. So let's quickly go through both of them. In the embassy track, you have to first hand in the application to, as the name suggests, your embassy. Once you get through that round, it gets forwarded to NEED, which is a Korean organization for the scholarship, and once they approve, it gets forwarded to 3 universities of your choosing, and you only have to get accepted by at least one of them to then get the scholarship. For the university track, you send in your application to directly university, but only to one university you want to go to. If they accept you, they send it over to NEED, and if they accept you as well, then you already have the scholarship. So there's one less step in between, but therefore you only get to choose one university. I personally chose the embassy track for mainly 2 reasons. One of them was that a friend of mine who was already studying in South Korea also chose the embassy track, so I was just more familiar with it. And then also how I made the decision for myself personally was that I thought I really want to study filmmaking in South Korea, but I didn't necessarily care that much about which of the 3 universities I liked most. Obviously I had my favorite, where I also am now, but I would have been happy to go to any of the other 2 as well. If you have only one university you want to go to, or they have like there's this one major at this one university, and if you don't get that, you don't want to go at all, then maybe the university track is better, but that's a very personal choice, so you have to make that decision for yourself. And there's also different quotas for each country, how many people get approved for each track, so you can also check that in your guidelines to help you make your decision. So obviously from that on, I'm now going to talk about the embassy track timeline, because that's the one I went with. So I sent in my application, and then on the 20th of March 2023 I got the first email back from the embassy that I made it to the interview round. So after sending in my application, I now had to also have an interview with the embassy, which then took place on the 23rd of March, so 3 days later. I was the most nervous for this interview in the whole process, I think, and I will make a whole separate video about the questions they asked me, because I think otherwise this video will get way too long. So I had the interview on the 23rd, and then on the 25th I got the email that I was successful in round 1. Obviously I was very happy at that moment, because from what I've heard, the first round is basically the most difficult one in the embassy track, and once you pass that, your chances are not guaranteed but pretty high that you can move forward. So from there on, there was just a lot of waiting, and honestly that is the hardest part about this whole process, the waiting in between each step. So yeah, I got on the 25th of March, I got the email that I was successful for round 1, and then on the 4th of May I got the email that I was successful for round 2. So that was a lot of waiting in between, and that they would forward my email to the universities. On the same day, I got an email from one of my universities, and they requested a portfolio and a separate interview with them as well. From all 3 universities I applied to, this was the only one who requested a portfolio or interview, so that's definitely not every university and definitely not every major. My major is very practical filmmaking, so it made sense to me that they wanted to see some of my works. Then on the 15th of May, that was the deadline for my portfolio. I had to hand in 2 short films I did previously, or I think you could also hand in a script you've written, but I'll make a different video about the portfolio part as well eventually. And then on the 22nd of May, I had the interview with said university, and I was, again, obviously quite nervous for that one, but I got really lucky because on the same day, and I think early in that day, I don't remember correctly, but I think it was earlier, I got the first email that I was successful at one of my universities. So at that point, I already knew that I would be going to South Korea, and how the interview was just because that was my favorite university. So obviously I was a little bit nervous, but I had already the guarantee that I made it, so that was really great. Then on the 8th of June was when I got a second email from my second university, and I got rejected for that one. Sadly, I mean, it was not my favorite anyway, so it was okay, but still, like, why did you? Anyways. And then on the 9th of June, I got finally the last email that was successful for my favorite university, where I also did the interview in the portfolio. And yeah, that was basically it. And on the 3rd of July, that was when there was the final email from my embassy that I did make it as a successful candidate, and I could prepare for my departure to South Korea, which was at the end of August. So it's really quick paced once you get to that point, and you have to really quickly prepare everything, because before you get that final email, at least for me, I didn't prepare anything, because even though I was at that point highly likely to get it, or almost guaranteed to get it, until you get that final green light, I didn't want to start packing and I didn't want to buy things. So then I had to do everything a little bit in a rush, but it was a very happy rush. So yeah, that was how my application process went. If you have any more questions, leave them in the comments. I hope it was helpful, and I see you in the next video. Bye!